Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for First Class Holidays Around the World Week. We're excited to have you with us as we celebrate over 30 years of unforgettable journeys and showcase the incredible destinations and trusted supplier partners that make it all possible. This week is all about inspiration, connection, and highlighting the very best of what First Class Holidays has to offer. I'm now going to hand you over to Della from Tourism Yukon. Please note this session is pre-recorded, but if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them all. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out to us at sales@fcholidays.com. Enjoy the session.
Hello everyone, good to meet you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a run through about Yukon. It may be an area that you're not that familiar with, but that's where we're here to help. And obviously the wonderful guys at First Class who we work very closely with and have done throughout our contract and in representing the Yukon. So they have a load of great product as well for you to take a look at. Right, let's get going. So the first question I quite often get asked is, where is the Yukon? I've done your job, I've been a travel agent, I've been a tour operator, and I know it's an area that you might not be familiar with. We all know BC, Alberta, Ontario, those bigger destinations, and the Yukon is obviously a little bit more niche. We're right up there as far north and west as you can get in Canada. We border Alaska and Northwest Territories. So if you head west, you're in Alaska. If you head east, you're in Northwest Territories, and then south of us is British Columbia. So that's where we are in the little yellow triangle there. So how do you get to us? There is no non-stop flight from the UK to Whitehorse, sadly, but you can get to us via pretty much most gateways, the most popular of which really is Vancouver. Air Canada, year-round daily service, all year, winter and summer. But also you can use people like WestJet into Calgary and connect up from Calgary with airlines like Air North. Air North is the Yukon's own airline. It's Yukon based. It's based out of Whitehorse, and you can connect, as you can see there, to lots of different gateways between Whitehorse and all of those that you can see there on the slide. You can also fly to Dawson City, which is in the north of our territory. So you can actually fly up from Whitehorse, which is our capital in the south, to Dawson in the north. It's about an hour-long flight if your clients want to do that. So I often get asked as well, because we're close to Alaska, people say, well, can we get to you by cruise or ferry? We're not actually accessible by either, but we are pretty close. Skagway is only 2 hours by road. And as you know, Skagway is a massive port for a lot of the major cruise lines, Holland America, etc. And you can get into Skagway and then you can get to Whitehorse by one of two ways, really, by road, that's only 2 hours up the road. Also, we have a very famous railroad called the White Pass Railroad, which is a scenic trip. A lot of people do it, particularly cruise passengers do it from Skagway. You can do various combinations. You can take the train up and then motor coach back. There's lots of different combos that you can do. But yes, we're not actually accessible by cruise, but we're not far from a cruise port. So Yukon roadways. A lot of people think, I think it's a fair assumption, oh my goodness, the Yukon is pretty remote. Am I going to be able to get around? Okay, is it well covered with various highways? And the answer is yes. As you can see, this is a Canadian PowerPoint, so it says in kilometres, but 5,000 kilometres, that's over 3,000 miles of well-maintained roadways. So we are an ideal fly drive destination. Don't think just because of where we are that you can't get around easily. I will say public transport is not one of our USPs. We don't have Via Rail, for example, but we are very much easily get aroundable, if you want. That's the wrong word, but traversable is better by road with highways. So we have kind of two distinct seasons. I'll be honest with you, we are really summer/fall or winter. We don't necessarily push people going out in spring, say March or April, because the weather can be a bit unpredictable. We will certainly quite often have snow right the way through to May, end of May, sometimes even. But in the summer, we are the land of the midnight sun. And summer really, to be absolutely frank with you, is the beginning of June through to mid-August. By mid-August, we are going into the fall. But the great thing about the summer months is we have very long days because we are the land of the midnight sun. In around the summer solstice time, June and July, sometimes the sun doesn't set at all. So you can go kayaking at midnight, you can be out on a golf course, you know, in the early hours. It's quite a phenomenon for most Brits. And also, just to mention that nearly all hotels, motels, wherever you're staying is going to have a blackout blind, because obviously tourists are not used to having the sunlight streaming through and you know, late in the day. So long daylight hours. Summer and fall, we were just saying about that. June through to mid-August is summer. Fall starts mid-August and goes really through to the early part of September. If you're coming on a summer fly drive, I wouldn't say go out any later than the very beginning of September, because from, say, like the third week of September onwards, you know, we can already start getting wintry weather kind of coming in. So what can you do in the summer and fall? Pretty much everything you can imagine in Canada. My boss always says that the Yukon is Canada on steroids, and I always think that's pretty good, actually. It's a pretty good description because there is so much outdoor activity. And I'm just going to play a little video here. Hopefully this will play. So that just gives you a little glimpse of the Yukon in summer. And, you know, one other thing that I always like to say, and I know that First Class can help you with RVs as well, but we are the ideal RV destination. And I know a lot of people think, oh my goodness, I don't know, my client's a little bit nervous about an RV. Maybe they've never done one. I have rented an RV, and if I can do it, anyone could do it. It is incredibly easy. And the reason for that is that we have so many wide open highways, as it says, 3,000 miles uncrowded highways. It's absolutely true. We don't have rush hour. We have rush minute, and that applies to Whitehorse only. Once you get outside of Whitehorse, which is named the Wilderness City because it literally does sit on the wilderness, you have wide open highways, great campgrounds, privately owned and government campgrounds everywhere, really, really well equipped for RV people. And it's just the ideal location because the things that people worry about, like congested highways or driving around, you know, a city with maybe lots of skyscrapers and being a little bit daunted by having a huge vehicle, there is none of that in the Yukon. We have Canadream and Fraserway. So take a look at that and definitely bear that in mind for any clients that want to try an RV. Paddler's Haven, or Heaven as we call it. We have so many riverways that we can get out on, you know, in the Yukon, you can literally get out on a dragon boat, on a kayak, paddleboard, you name it. It's all about the water. We have the third longest in North America, the famous Yukon River. You don't have to be this experienced Bear Grylls type of person to be paddling down the river. I've done it many a time. You can just take a 2-hour trip, and you can literally take that trip right from the center of Whitehorse. And again, this is the kind of thing that First Class can add on for your client. They can add in all these little extra experiences that really your clients should do whilst they're there. Flight seeing is another thing. Again, I know First Class can add this for you. Summer and winter. The reason flight seeing is so amazing is because we have Kluane National Park, which is a UNESCO heritage site. And it's just one of the largest protected land masses in the world. And to see it from the air is absolutely stunning. Completely recommend that. Summer or winter. It's a year-round thing. Obviously, it is weather dependent, though. Some of the flight seeing do land on the glaciers, by the way, as well. But again, that is weather dependent. Also need to mention our Indigenous culture. We have 14 First Nations with 8 different language groups. So we have a really rich Indigenous cultural history. We have festivals, we have various different attractions. One of the things that I always tell people to do is go to a cultural centre. In each town, you will find a cultural centre, which is a cross really between a community centre and a museum, if you like, and it will tell you about local tribes. It will tell you about the local history. Quite often there are elders that you can meet and speak with. It's really, really a must-do thing in the Yukon to kind of embrace the history of our territory. So what do people do in winter? Now, First Class can sell you summer fly drives. They can also sell you winter product. Winter is a completely different experience, obviously, to the summer. And I'm not going to lie to you, we can get down to -30 and beyond. So you need to be equipped. And one of the first things I would always say is, try and encourage your clients to hire the winter clothing. And again, that's something that First Class can add on for you. The reason for that is, unless you're a skier, and to be honest, even if you're a skier, you're not likely to have the gear that you will need to be there in winter. If you're there and around -10, -20 even, which sounds, I know, pretty horrendous to most Brits, but trust me, it is a completely different cold. You would be okay with perhaps, your regular kind of winter clothing. But once you get beyond that, you need the mitts, you need the headgear, you need, snow boots, kind of everything that you can imagine to really enjoy the snow and enjoy that winter experience. So definitely I would tell your clients to always do that. So what do people do if they're on an Aurora viewing package? In general, they'll do a 3 or 4 night package. They will come up from Vancouver. They might split their time and have a bit of a city break in Vancouver and then fly up. And I think First Class do that combination package. They might also go do something like skiing in Whistler and then come to us. We are known for our Aurora viewing, and normally we suggest a 3 or 4 night package for that, for optimum viewing, as it says there. And just to really flag up something that's happening right now, we are in something called the Solar Max, which means that the Northern Lights are much more intense at the moment, right the way through 2026. But they can actually be seen from August to mid-April in the Yukon. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about, don't realize, that, they think it's got to be a winter thing. Because of our climate, because of where we are geographically, we have a very semi-arid, dry climate. Once those temperatures start dropping in the fall, which is mid-August onwards, we get the clear night skies and you can see those aurora. Not as fantastic as you will see it in the winter, I would say that, but definitely I take fam trips out quite often in the beginning of September and we see the aurora then. So definitely something to mention to somebody that might not want to go in the winter but does have the aurora on their bucket list. So what else do people do? As I've already said, winter clothing recommended. It's a dry cold, but it can get very chilly. People sometimes say to me, is it dark? Is it one of those places that you have very little daylight hours in the winter? No, it's very similar to here. 10 a.m. to about 4, as it says there on the PowerPoint slide. I would say if your clients really want optimum winter kind of experience, January, February is ideal, because you're getting more daylight hours then, but you've still got those amazing conditions with the ice, the snow, etc. By the time we get to March, as you can see, we actually have really long daylight hours. But just to kind of mention that in terms of people kind of asking that sort of question. So what else do you do if you're doing an Aurora package? That is a nighttime activity. That might sound a bit silly to mention it, but the aurora, it has to be dark for you to see it generally. So you're going to be picked up at about 9 o'clock at night and go out until sometimes 2 in the morning. It's a well organized machine. If you are on an aurora package, your clients get collected from their hotel. They have a guide. They're shown how to photograph the northern lights. They're in yurts or cabins, so they don't have to stand outside, in -20, -30. They can just go in and out. So it's very, very well organized. But in the daytime, what do they want to do? Quite often somebody might want to go and sit in a beautiful hot springs like this one. The Eclipse Nordic Hot Springs is my favorite new attraction in Whitehorse. Again, it's open year round. One thing that is really, really fabulous now is that you can kind of like go there and actually watch the aurora from those hot springs. It has all kinds of different hot springs, depending on what you want to do. It has sauna, steam rooms, that kind of thing. And you buy a ticket. Again, it's something you can do through First Class as well. We have a hair freezing competition. Everyone always laughs about these slides. One thing that people perhaps don't realize is that your hair will freeze when you sit in those hot springs. Once it gets down to about -20, your eyelashes and everything start frosting over. We have a famous competition in February every year where people make all kinds of weird and wonderful kind of shapes out of their hair. And, you know, it's a competition of the weirdest kind of hairstyles, really, that people can make out of the ice that forms on their hair. Other popular things to do in the daytime, dog sledding is one of the most popular things to do. You can have a half-day trip, an all-day trip. You can do multi-day expeditions. It's very, very popular in the Yukon. The reason there's a lot of dog ranches in the Yukon is we have a very famous a race every year in February called the Yukon Quest, and a lot of the dogs are trained there and trained in the Yukon. It spans Alaska and the Yukon. That's me actually in the Yukon in the winter with the dogs. A lot of people ask me about dog sledding. If you don't feel happy about driving dogs because you are stood up and you are steering dogs, you have complete guidance on that. You'll have a guide at the front and a guide at the back. Normally it's a team of about 10 people, 8 people going out with dogs. And if you're not up to sort of like negotiating dogs, you can actually sit in one of those kind of snood things there that you can see me in with the dog sitting on my lap. So, you know, just be aware that it is quite an active pursuit. Like if you're frail or elderly, maybe those dogs do take off at speed. So just be aware of that if you're recommending it to anybody. But it's an amazing bucket list experience. The other things that people love to do, snowshoeing, snowmobiling. Snowmobiling is probably the second most popular thing to do. And to get out there on those frozen lakes is pretty stunning. Really, really is fabulous. So what about accommodation? People ask me about accommodation, you know, where would I stay? Again, first class can sell you lodge stays or any type of accommodation, really. And we have all kinds of things ranging from days in to Westmark to Ramada to lodges. Lodges do give you a more personal experience. We have lots of them in the Yukon, and it depends on your client what they want. I know that first class sell, I'm pretty sure, Northern Lights Resort and Southern Lakes, for example, who are two of our most popular lodges. We've also got 3 to 4 star accommodations around the Yukon too. The Raven Inn at the top there on that left-hand slide is one of our newest 4-star properties, actually. We only have a couple. We have a new Hyatt Place about to open this summer as well. So yeah, that we do have a kind of really good range of accommodations. The Northern Lights, just to give you an example of a lodge, this is one of our most popular lodges, 20 minutes outside of Whitehorse. It's a year-round facility. People stay in separate guest cabins. It has a spa there. It's really a spectacular place to be. They run a lot of their own activities as well from this particular property. So wildlife viewing, one thing I do sometimes get asked, what about wildlife? You know, our clients are looking at going for wildlife, you know, they may, that might be one of the primary reasons they want to go, wildlife and scenery. We have 40,000 people in the territory. It's actually a little bit more than that. This needs updating, but that's, as you can imagine, it's kind of the population of my hometown, which is not particularly big. So the great thing about the Yukon is it is a wild environment. You are likely to see bears on the side of the road, foraging for berries, particularly early summer when they've come out of hibernation, and also when they're going back into hibernation in around September time. So we have 2 moose for every person, pretty much. We have one of the largest grizzly bear populations as well. So it's not a Disney experience. That's what I always say with the Yukon. We can't promise you a specific lodge or hotel where at 2 o'clock the bears are going to be there waving at you. I know that, you know, in some other territories and provinces, you know, you are you know, you can stay at specific lodges. The wildlife has a big area to explore in the Yukon, but I always tell people for moose, always look out when you see lakes. Bears are just likely to cross in front of you. If you're after grizzly bears, which obviously we don't want to be after grizzly bears exactly, grizzlies are mostly seen in Kluane National Park. So, but you know, obviously wherever you go, wherever you stop, if there's a picnic area or a car park, there will be bear bins, there will be warnings about bears as well. I always say go on a guided hike, and again, that's something that First Class can add on for you, because then you know you're safe, or you're with you know, a guide that will know the territory, and be obviously completely aware of what he needs to be aware, he or she needs to be aware of, when guiding you. So a quick Yukon map recap. This kind of just shows you again where the Yukon is in relation to Alaska. As I said earlier, if you head west, you're in Alaska. We do get a lot of people combine us with Alaska, and First Class do have Alaska Yukon combinations as well. You can do a very sort of like convenient, if you like, figure of eight between Alaska and the Yukon. I always say if you're going to do Alaska and the Yukon, allow 2.5 weeks rather than a 2-week itinerary, 3 if you can. The Yukon, you can easily do 10 to 14 days self-drive itinerary. But just to highlight a couple of things, we have Kluane National Park, which you can see in this dark kind of olive green area here. That's the area I told you about with the flight seeing. That's a UNESCO heritage site. We also have a brand new UNESCO heritage site around Dawson City now, and that's just come about in the last year or so, and it's just amazing because it incorporates that whole gold rush history that we have in the Yukon. And the gold rush was the last big gold rush of North America. It happened in the very late 1890s in Dawson City. It's an amazing story, and that new UNESCO site, which covers acres and acres of land, it tells the story from both sides now, not just from those explorers and those pioneers, but also from the First Nations perspective, who obviously it had a massive effect on their life as well when the gold rush started in that area. So Whitehorse, capital city, just giving a very quick rundown on a couple of places. Whitehorse is where your clients will come in if they're flying in. It's a sprawling city, but it hasn't got a massive population, as you can see there. It is known as the Wilderness City because it does sit on the wilderness. It literally sits also on the river. It's got a beautiful scenic location. The area that your clients will most likely kind of walk around if they are staying in downtown Whitehorse will literally be like a 6-block area. It's very, very easy. They can park up, they can walk around Whitehorse, and you know, it's really easy to get around. Once they leave Whitehorse, I'm not going to lie to you, they will either need to be on an escorted motor coach tour or a small guided tour or in a car. We don't really have those bus services. We do have something called the Husky Bus, which goes from Whitehorse up to Dawson City. But outside of that, your clients are going to struggle if they want to get around a lot of different remote areas without a vehicle. Tombstone Territorial Park, need to just mention this because this is absolutely beautiful, and it's part of the Dempster Highway, which goes across the Arctic Circle. We have the only highway in Canada that crosses the Arctic Circle, and this is it. And Tombstone is just a spectacular park. You can also do flight seeing over this park. It's a different mountain range than Kluane. Stunning in the fall, really, really beautiful. Everything is gold, yellow, and as I said, you can also get a chance to see the aurora if you're there in the fall. Kluane National Park is that other UNESCO heritage site I told you about. Again, beautiful, only an hour and a half from Whitehorse, loads of hiking trails, wildlife viewing. This is where the grizzlies live, rafting, kayaking, all of those kinds of activities as well, in and around Kluane. One thing just to mention, you cannot stay in Kluane National Park. Your clients will most likely stay at Haines Junction, which serves the park. There is no national park accommodation inside the park at this point. Klondike Gold Rush, just need to mention that quickly. As I was mentioning, this all really happened in Dawson City. Gold was found in Dawson Creek in 1898, and 100,000 people stampeded to Dawson City from all over the world. And as it says, largest human migration at that time, for people that literally were looking for gold. And it does literally look like this. Dawson City is one of those Western towns that everybody kind of dreams of visiting. It's kind of clapboard, wooden buildings. Nothing can be changed. Like I said, it's all part of the UNESCO site now. It's only 1 hour flight from Whitehorse. So if your clients don't want to drive up there and they want to do a twin centre, they can fly between the two. They could centre themselves around Whitehorse and then they could go up to Dawson City by air. Once you're in Dawson, you can walk everywhere. Again, very, very small city, very easy to get around. So just in summary, we are larger than life. That's our tagline. Wilderness without the crowds. Midnight sun in the summer, northern lights viewing, as it says, from August right the way through to April. All kinds of accommodation. Really just an amazing destination. I know it's not going to be the first place that your people will think of, but think of us particularly for people that have maybe been to Canada before. They might have been to BC and Alberta, loved the Rockies, but they want something without the crowds. They want something a little bit more adventurous, more of a frontier feel. The Yukon is absolutely perfect for that, but equally we can be combined easily with British Columbia, Northwest Territories or Alaska. We have a great trade site, Travel Yukon, as it says, /en/trade, where you can download lots of resources. You can send your clients there as well. First class is listed as a preferred operator, and it's a great resource for maps, guides, everything that you can need. But also, please feel free to reach out to me. The first class guys know me. We have sent people from first class to the Yukon as well, and we're more than happy to advise you. So please don't get stumped if someone asks you for the Yukon. Take a look at first class. They have a huge variety of product for you to pluck from, but if there's any questions or any guidance you need, you can also come to me. Thank you for your time.